So the idea of if with neuroscience and what they figured out about how your brain works, and then with the church and saying, here's what they teach. A little secret here is like, if you do what the church teaches, you get healthy. Stuff clears up. And if you do what's kind of good mental health, that has kind of a moral line to it, if it's lining up with being your best self, to steal from Matthew Kelly, it's like, that works. So putting the two together is really kind of the best of both worlds. And so, like, say, if you were coming in and saying, like, you're Catholic, you're wanting to go therapy, you had some problems with something, then the first part is just education about, well, here's what's going on. Here's what the game board looks like, and what the pieces do in this, kind of chess match inside your head. so the idea is, from attachment therapy, they're saying, like, when a baby's born, they don't have language, but they're trying to communicate, like that, I'm dying, like, every 2 hours there's this, I'm dying, that kind of thing. And so you're, as a parent, saying, like, hey, there's pain, I'm going to give you some care. But you don't know what they need. So you just trial and error to kind of see, is it food, is it a diaper, is it a burp, is it, a rash or something? And then when it matches up, like, say they're hungry, you feed them, they're like, nom, 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 and then they calm down. And so God made us to go from pain to calm. It's like on a biology level, we're trying to get to calm. That emotional level is like, I express the pain, I want you to care, and then I feel close to you. And on a spiritual level, they're saying, like, hey, you have the angel on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder. One saying, like, nobody cares. And the other's like, oh my gosh, you love me, and that's really wonderful. And so the idea of that, those three different layers are working to the same purpose. So the spirituality is definitely a part of it. But for folks that are like, they're not spiritual, or they don't have any connection with God, or they're religious but not spiritual, or those kind of things, to say, okay, well, your biology is still based on the natural law that God wrote in you, and that's why you can have, like, a terribly abusive childhood. You get away from that, and then you can raise your kids and not abuse them, because you have the sense of what's right in you. That's that natural law. That's that God put rules in there, saying, like, okay, if you follow it, you turn right side up, you heal, you improve. And then even like folks that have really alcoholic parents can raise kids and kind of break out of that alcoholic, cycle. But that's kind of what it's like. There's a spiritual part there that's really important to pay attention to, if you can handle hearing that level of, here's how you work. And so that's the first part. Then you can say, okay, now it's a two-part process. So if I say, that if we do the baby, I'm in pain, I don't have language, you figure it out over the year. And so a little technical thing that God put in there is to say, like, I express pain, you take it away. I express pain, you take it away. Every 2 hours, 24/7 for the first year of life. That's a bonding process. So now when I have pain, I go to you because you take it away. And so God says, okay, after about 12 months, poof, you can walk. And so wherever you go, the baby follows. But if the baby walks before 12 months, they didn't get it, and then you got to follow them. It's just like, oh my gosh, there they go. Come back. You're like, no, I'm going to go do it. And so that's that kind of, it has a purpose. It's like time, repetition, building a pattern, and then you grow in that connection. And so then, as an adult, you have language. So I can then take care of myself, say, like, oh, it's time for breakfast. Go get myself some breakfast. Or I could say, honey, I'm hungry. Would you make me some? And then you would make me my favorite breakfast because you're awesome. Because I can communicate and you care and I'm asking for something. So that's the idea, is that it's a two-part process. The first part is I'm expressing pain or stress or anger or whatever it is. And then the second part is I got to recharge. I got to fill back up. So if I do something like, say, if you're just a mom, taking care of your kids, it drains you out. I love them, but it drains me out. So at the end of the day, I need to do something to recharge me. I'm not selfish. I'm just recharging so I can be a good mom tomorrow. So it's really, that balance of, I need to take turns where I'm caring for them, then caring for myself. Or like they say in the airplane, it's like, well, the crash, the mask comes down, put it on yourself and then put it on the baby, because then you'll be able to breathe and be able to finish the task instead of passing out halfway and then you both die. So the idea there is saying, not only is it a two-part process, but it's physically two locations inside you. And so that first part that is like, oh my gosh, I'm dying here. Well, let's shift it to a marriage example. To say, when I was first married, I wasn't a therapist. And so I'd be cooking because I like to cook. And I grew up in New Mexico, so I'm making chili. And my wife would come in and say, what are you making that for? The back of my brain fires off. You just attacked me.
Yeah.
And
I'm so
it's just like, oh my gosh, you just attacked me. It's just like, it's fast. So there's physically a location, and if we had the little map here, I have in my office, but it's just like saying your amygdala, your limbic system, I call it back brain, is just, it fires off worst case scenario. You just attacked me. And then I'd say, what are you attacking me for? I'm not attacking you. And then we'd fight. It became true. So, but later we got some brain studies, because when I was first a psychologist, they didn't know all this. Now they've done brain studies and say like what's going on and what parts are doing what. And so now you have this thing of saying like, okay, so the back of my brain fires off this, you just attacked me. And there's physically a wave of brain chemistry that goes with that. And the smallest dose of stress I can get is 60 seconds. And so you just asked me a question and poof, you attacked me, and it goes for 60 seconds. If I don't do anything, it goes away and I get out of it. So good news there. And then, but see, separate from that, you have the prefrontal cortex, the front brain. That's like me. I'm loving, I'm smart, I'm helpful, I care. And so that part of me said, well, we're married. This is a wonderful thing. You care for me. That was just an information question. And now, go back to, I'm making chili. You say, what are you making that for? Back of my brain fires off. You just attacked me. I have to physically choose to say, that was just an information question. While the back of my own head says, you just got attacked. And if I hold on for 60 seconds and say, just information, back of my brain settles down. I say, hey, I'm making this because if I take lunch, it saves us $20 a day. And you're like, oh, that's a great idea. Thanks for saving us money. That becomes true. So which path I go with makes a difference. So the thing that you're looking at now is to say, that string of thoughts you have in your head, it's actually two. Sorting it into the two different pathways gives you control and choice back. To say, do I go with that? Sometimes I might need to watch out, cars are driving, or I might be like, no, that was an information question. But having that sorted out gives you, I'm stepping back, I'm getting control. There's your free will. And that's what, the church is talking about.
What's so funny is on my podcast with Father John Mosier, I actually talked about this, but my spiritual advisor at Belmont Abbey, she used to tell me that really we are the dial, like if you're looking at it like a dial, and she says you have thoughts from like the Holy Spirit, and like she's like, this is just an analogy, like a visual. And she's like, you have thoughts from the Holy Spirit, then you have thoughts from the devil, and really you're just the dial. Like you're just the one that whatever you're going to listen to. And she's like, obviously if your spiritual life is strong, you're going to choose the better option. And so she always talked about that as like a visual for understanding that. But it makes sense, like as you're talking about how the church, if you follow its teachings, you're going to kind of learn some of these behaviors. Is that what you were saying? Or
well, yeah, because it's the idea of, if we're using virtue, is to say that there's kind of the justice is in parenting is basic obedience. It's just like, come here. If I say come here, put that away, just go over there, stop, don't, that kind of thing. It's just like for the child or the other person being able to follow directions. That's the first virtue of justice. Then you have prudence to say, well, how much do I need? And then there's temperance and fortitude. And so those prudence, temperance, and fortitude work together, and that's kind of the gears that move you forward. And so how that would play out is, if more chili analogies, or if you're making sourdough bread, say like, okay, so if you're got a menu theme. So if you're cooking something and it takes, like with the sourdough bread cake, it takes a couple days to make it from scratch. You got to build it and feed it, and then you grow the dough, and then you cook it. And so the fortitude is I spend the time it takes to make a good loaf of bread. But then, when I was in college, it's like it's coming out of the oven. It smells so good. I'm watching a movie. I eat the whole loaf. And so then I need the temperance to say, like, well, just cut a slice and have it later. Or I'd make a whole crock pot of chili verde, and then be like, I'd eat the whole thing one night, and I'd be like sick for 3 days because I ate so much. And I say, like, so that balance of I can do the effort to make the good thing, but then I have to have the self-control to not eat it all that day. You know, I can spread it out, have 4 lunches instead of just one giant meal. So it's just like those college days are gone. You know, I can't eat that much anymore. So the idea is, it's that how much do I need? Can I do the hard stuff because there's a goal I'm going towards? And can I kind of say no to myself and not just go to like, hey, that was fun, eat it all, or that was fun, do it all, you know. And got a family I'm working with that, you know, the wife liked to sew. They went to a craft festival, and he's like, hey, that looks like fun. So they got his and her sewing machines, and then they just like, oh my gosh, this is so good, and they just made stuff for like 6 days, just so. And then at the end of it, they're just like, oh, we're so sick of this, and they haven't touched them since. It's been months. But it's just like, if I do it all the way to the end, it's just it's too much. So that temperance is saying, like, I do enough, but leave wanting a little more. So then I can come back. And so then in parenting, it's saying, like, I'm in training mode, and the kids don't know. It's like the difference between me and them is like, I know stuff and they don't. So I'm going to be guiding them. And so I give them a little, like, the fortitude is like, come on, go do it, you know, come back, do it again. And the temper is like, hey, you got to turn that off and, you know, get ready for bed kind of stuff. So it's like, it's just little guidance, you know, little guardrails here, do a little more of this, little less of that. So I don't have to be angry. It's just like, hey, I'm just teaching them.
Yeah.
And I'm guiding them rather than, oh my gosh, you did this, and I got to blow up at you, and then you're responding to, oh my gosh, Dad's really losing it, you know, kind of thing. Let's hide from Dad. So the idea is that sorting out, and I've traced it back like, you know, 6,000 years, that people had this idea of an angel on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder. And St. Paul writes about, you know, the stuff I do, I don't want to do, and the stuff I don't do that, you know, I want to do. And that kind of that struggle is like, okay, so they had it mapped out even back in the Old Testament, that there's this kind of desire to do stuff, but you get a resistance, or the good stuff you want to do, and there's resistance, and there's this pull towards do the bad stuff that's kind of selfish, or, you know, eat all the bread, you know, kind of thing, eat all the candy bars kind of thing. So it's just that work of building that discipline of saying, like, hey, how do we get that to work together? And so that's back to the counseling thing, is to say, well, you got 2 brain pathways. How do you sort them out? Well, the fast one's always the worst case. You're going to attack me. And if it isn't bad out there, it doesn't shut up. It's like, I'm bad, I shouldn't have said it. And it's self-critical. So it's either
Can you say that again? Sorry.
So that back of my brain, that amygdala, is just you're bad or I'm bad. Somebody's bad around here. It just does protection. It never says I love you. It says watch out. So if you ask me a question, it's just like, you just attacked me. And if I react, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, I'm bad, you know, that kind of thing. So it's just, that's all that place does. It never says love. It's just watch out. You're bad, I'm bad, somebody's bad. Separate from that, so that's my first response. The second response is more loving, capable. That's the part that got you through school. Say, like, hey, we can do this, and we graduate, and then, you know, get a job. It's that sense of, if I pay for this, then I'll have a jet ski, or if I pay for this, then I'll go skiing. You know, that front brain can do a hard task towards a goal if it says, hey, that's a good thing I want to do. And so that's one way to sort it out, just like the fast and the slow, the worst case or the more loving part. The other one, another way to tell them apart, is the back of my brain's like all or nothing. You always do this. You never do that. You know, that you never care. You never love me. I am always doing all the work around here. So anybody's talking all or nothing language, that's the back of their head.
Hey, really quick, I just wanted to say that 71% of you that listen to our content regularly have yet to subscribe to our channel. If you're enjoying this piece of content, go ahead and click right now. It's a free and easy way for us to continue to bring the guests you want to hear and the conversations that you want to have. That being said, it's also a good way to help engage with us and have feedback, so we know what type of content you want to hear and making sure that every episode is worth your time. Thank you so much if you have already subscribed, and if you haven't, go ahead and click the button down below.